What is NSFW, but should be SFW? Definitely a request for IT to unblock your website's own domain. Maybe submit a ticket that says, "Request for IT to unblock www.company.com," which is our own company website. Employees need to see this to reference it to customers and vendors. Write it as if you're describing it to someone that doesn't work at your company. Most likely, it's an outsourcing firm. This happened at my job too. I pretty regularly use YouTube as part of my job. Not anymore. No exceptions if it's job related. It's not fair to let me use it, because it was apparently necessary to block everyone after a couple people misused it. They also blocked 99% of videos, aside from those in some old outdated format. I found out when I was trying to do videos when I didn't have other work to do. Well, joke's on them BC. Now I just go on Reddit on my phone. My job is great at disincentivizing employees who want to do their job to accommodate those who don't care. My favorite memory of one of those that I truly believe was anonymous was my manager sitting his team of about 8 people down in a conference room to talk about the results. As we were going through it, he read one of the responses verbatim, then turned to the crowd and asked along the lines of, "Who wants to expand on it?" No one spoke up, until I said, "You're probably not going to get a response because it skews negative, and the automatic assumption is the person who speaks up is either the one who submitted it, or in on it. Those surveys are anonymous for a reason, so your manager can't pinpoint the dissonant and find a reason to fire them." Then again, that is also what a bad manager would do. A good manager like who I have now or at my last job, would take the comments to heart and attempt to improve, not go on a witch hunt. I'm a professor who teaches on medieval Europe. A few years ago at the university I used to work at, I was trying to access BBC from my work computer and no luck. I figured something weird was going on. A little bit later, I was doing course prep for England to 1688, so I was going to gather material from British history online, and I wasn't able to access that either. So I went and talked to IT, and a few weeks before, the university's network had gotten a Trojan that originated in Britain, and so IT had blocked access to the whole of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. "Please unblock all of Britain" was without a doubt the most singularly silly help desk ticket I've ever filled out in all 27 years of my adult life. At my airline job, policy was no sleeping at work for non-pilot positions. Then a few years back, our former CEO was being interviewed by a famous interviewer about improvements being made as the airline, and the subject of break rooms came up, how they were being updated. The interviewer asked if these were places where the employees were allowed to sleep, and the CEO said yes. Our union jumped on that fast and was able to successfully argue that the CEO just said we can sleep in our break room, and policy was changed overnight. Obviously can't sleep through actual work. I'm a server and bartender, and I'm always upfront with customers when we are short-staffed. I'm polite about it, but if someone orders the steak and I know there's one cook who already has 25 tickets in front of him, I'll tell them, "So you know, we are down a cook today. There was a big rush before you ordered, and the steak takes a while to cook. I'm more than happy to put in the order for you, but I wanted to give you heads up that it could be a good 30 minutes before your order's up." They always appreciate it. I've never had someone get mad. Most of the time they still order, and I don't have to apologize later when they are mad they still don't have their food. I'll never understand why more employers aren't okay with just being honest with customers. It would be nice to the customers too. As a customer, I would be much more understanding if I'd know what's really going on, instead of hearing just vague phrases about how they're doing everything to give me the best experience or whatever corporate speak, especially when I'm trying to call somewhere and they're like, "We will connect you shortly" for like 45 minutes. Luckily some companies are implementing that countdown thing when they tell you how many customers are in front of you, which is basically exactly that, telling you what's really going on, and giving you at least some hint about how long you're about to wait. Many years ago when I was a teenager working in a supermarket, this cranky old crazy lady complained to me we didn't have an item on the shelf. I said to her I'm pretty sure our delivery had come in about 15 minutes before and I would check the new stock and if we had it and I would grab it for her. Fast forward 10 minutes later, I have the stock in hand but she's at the customer service desk complaining how rude I was and I just walked off, even though I apologized to her after wasting my time trying to track her down with her fucking shit. Guess who ends up in a disciplinary meeting and a strike against my name? If that happened to me now, I'd take it from the customer but tell the manager who disciplined me go fuck themselves. It's beyond bullshit the dumb crap you deal with in retail, especially as a young person. I didn't work returns but the area I worked in was located close to the returns counter when I worked retail. I don't recall what this woman was trying to return but I know it was well beyond the return period. Still, the customer service rep was offering some store credit to her. That wasn't enough for her and she was absolutely losing her mind. She finally demanded to speak to a manager with whom she was calmer but still a bitch. He was not giving her what she wanted and she told him, "This is just bad customer service." I shit you not, he looked at her and said, "You know, sometimes bad customer service is a result of bad customers." We all had a hard time not audibly laughing. I once worked in a shop that sold car parts, accessories. A lady came in that was taking her family on holiday. Her daughter, her daughter's 2 kids. She drove a Peugeot 106. If you're not from the UK, it's a small car from the 1990s Fiesta class of car, but quite a bit smaller than the current Fiesta model as cars have grown a lot over the years. As well fitting the people in the car, she wanted to take multiple suitcases, toys for the kids, travel cot, pushchair, various other child-related paraphernalia. It simply wasn't going to fit so she came to our shop to assess options for additional car storage. I spent well over an hour with her going through all her options. Every single one was too expensive or inconvenient. Roof bars plus roof box, tow bar plus small trailer, renting a larger car. We didn't rent cars out. I just ran out of suggestions, leaving some of the larger items like the pushchair at home and seeing if there was somewhere to hire one wherever she was going to another shop to hire roof bars, roof box as we only sold them and didn't rent them. By the end she was pretty pissed off that I was refusing to help her and mocking her for having a small car, raising her voice etc. She then went and complained to the store manager that I wasn't giving her what she needed to be able to go on holiday before leaving without buying anything. I honestly don't know what she wanted in that situation. There were plenty of solutions, she just didn't like them. I had the dumbest conversation with one of the managers in the department store I worked at. So, in this department store, I was the floor-length gown specialist for weddings and galas etc. and one of my co-workers, who became a good friend of mine, was the lingerie specialist. Naturally, I would be constantly going to her for advice and input on bras and panties for brides-to-be, and we would split the sales so we both would benefit. I mentioned to her my salary and the raise I just received, and she got really upset. She had only received like a 25-cent raise despite her outstanding performance for the year. I received over $1. It turns out, after deliberation with all of her co-workers under her manager had been giving the absolute minimum raises over a period of at least 2 years. Push came to shove, my name was mentioned to this manager, and she tried to rake me through the coals about how it's illegal to discuss wages. She told me how much of a shame it would be for me to lose my raise I just received, essentially threatening me. I told her to kick rocks, and she shouldn't be acting like such a tyrant working in a department store manager job. Of course, nothing happened because it's not illegal to discuss wages. Funnily enough, at my last job it was the union that did this. I'm not trying to say unions are bad, just noting that it's weird that, well, our union was telling us not to discuss this, ostensibly because the newer employees were getting absolutely screwed by the union, less protections, more dues. Union reps didn't care about us, and the older employees with tenure were paying little in dues and reaping a whole bunch of benefits that would never be extended to newer employees, like time and a half on weekends, higher pay caps, etc. Was only let in on it because I was close friends with someone who was tenured and she told me they were told to never discuss wages by the union. So fucking weird. I've seen so many examples of unions doing right by their employees, trade unions especially, but in the case of this union they might as well had been in bed with the companies under their purview. Nipples. I was reprimanded at work for my nipples showing through my uniform. It was 6 degrees Celsius in the kitchen because they were too cheap to install heating and the uniforms were completely see-through. I was wearing 4 layers, bra, t-shirt, double-layer chef's jacket, and that still wasn't enough to hide the nip knobs. I notified my union because why the fuck are you staring at an 18 years/show chest? And also how dare you reprimand somebody for something that is not only a natural, uncontrollable reaction to the cold, but is also 100% the company's fault for shitty uniforms and no heating. Cheap bastards. Quit that winter. Not sure if it's this way for every state, but in at least some it is illegal for your work to question the whole reason for calling out. If you call out and tell them you have a family emergency, they aren't legally allowed to force you to tell them what that issue is. Doesn't stop most of them, and the last time I gave in to the pressure I was told that my dad attempting to use the highway for suicide isn't a good enough reason, so fuck any job or boss that forces that out of employees just to demean the reason. I once called in sick at a retail job and left a voicemail, since that's what you did if calling off before anyone was there, and said I needed a mental health day. My manager the next day very uncomfortably told me to just say I was sick in the future. So from then on when I needed a mental health day, I would just call and say I'm sick and I'm not coming in and then hang up, even if someone tried to convince me to come in despite being sick. Also, a lot of men are clueless about it. I'm in the military and work in a clinic, and once a girl came in and told us she was on her period and couldn't do her swimming lesson. We were like, okay, but are you alright? She was alright, just the usual PMS and all. Then we found out her staff were males and didn't want to deal with it/didn't know what to do, so they sent her to get checked like she was sick. Most men got wives, daughters or sisters, so why are they uncomfortable with it? Women's spaghetti strap tops. I'm a supervisor at a factory and it gets hot in here during the summertime. Shorts are okay but have to be knee length for men and women both. But I see no problem with spaghetti strap tops if women want to wear them here. Nothing's hanging out and nobody on my line was making a fuss about it. One woman working for me, I had to talk to her about her top before she left cause the main HR office lady said it was against dress code. It's illegal for a U.S. company to prevent you from discussing your pay with your employees under the National Labor Relations Act, which is why companies make it seem like, oh, gee, that's not polite or cool to do so because they don't want you doing it, but if they have a policy outright forbidding it, that is a clear labor violation, and the company is just waiting to be hit with a class action lawsuit. My husband is a pilot for a major airline in the U.S. and is a long-term volunteer with their union. Insurance, long-term disability, compensation, and retirement. Part of being hired is paying annual dues to the union even if you don't want to be involved. The perks of higher pay with less duty hours, more time off, union negotiated with the company. Large selecting of healthcare coverage, yep, also negotiated by the union. Along with a million other things. There are pilots that bitch and complain about not wanting to be in a union, but when something happens and shit goes down, who are the first people they call? The union. They don't want to be involved with the union, but if they were not a member no one would be actively fighting for you to keep your job. They are not perfect, but are fighting for pilot rights that affect the entire company. As a bum doctor, let me just say that probably greater than 75% of patients that I scope have at least first-degree hemorrhoids. These are internal only but still bleed. I haven't audited the actual numbers, but they are far more common than people think. Many patients are mortified when they read the report and find out that they have hemorrhoids. Look, These are just normal cushions in your rectum that get a little bit more blood to them and so become inflamed and can bleed on contact. Even higher grade hemorrhoids that prolapse are very common. If you have an itchy butt and blood when you wipe, you probably have hemorrhoids. Go and see your doctor and they can teach you ways to manage the symptomatology. Rarely are they harmful, dangerous. They're just irritating. I don't understand the stigma. I guess just because it's your rectum and for some reason the hole that shit comes out of is some private, sacred, and shameful piece of anatomy that can't be talked about. I also think the same should be true for bowel movements. I know that seems weird, but I see so many patients who are terrified that something is seriously wrong with them because their stool is always loose. This is more often than not just a normal variant, the idea that there's a perfect stool, which means that you're healthy and anything outside of that is an aberration of nature, needs to be killed. It is a great source of stress for many of my patients, and I'm sure becomes a self-stoking cycle of stress. Greater than GI upset, greater than more stress. End of rant. Thanks for opening the subject for a discussion. I agree. Swearing is just a way to express emotion. Like someone punched me really hard. Am I just going to say ouch? Stop it while you can say that. I would prefer more like ouch. Fuck. Why the fuck did you hit me? It wasn't that fucking necessary. Just as weird to me when parents forbid children to swear. Though swearing in my everyday language can be something else. Doesn't sound that pleasant when you hear someone swear in every third sentence. Or maybe that's just me. Then I don't know if this is true, but it just seems weird to me that you can't swear in American TV. In movies it's completely okay, but in live television it's not. It's not like people have not heard a curse word, and they still forbid it. The fact that there is a societal agreement that these words are somewhat off limits is what makes them useful, dare I say, fun. As part of our vocabulary, there should be taboo words, so that when you use them it feels stronger. You can't deny saying god fucking damn it has more emotional impact than gosh fricking darn it, right? That's the point. It feels better to say and evokes a stronger response in the listener, precisely because it's swearing. But if swear words were totally normalized, that would go away and swear words would just be words. Then we'd be on the hunt to find newer, dirtier words to fill that niche, which is in fact what happens. As words lose or gain their taboo status over the generations, the line between swear words and non-swear words is admittedly arbitrary and makes no sense, as you say. But it's not bad that there's a line. If there was no line, there'd be nothing to cross. No way of verbally pushing boundaries, setting up rules and expectations, and knowing how to strategically break them, is a big part of how we interact as a species. I think this is an actually interesting area of linguistics. Profane words come and go over time. Two prime examples are ass and retard. Ass was used irregularly for a while to describe a mule, then became a profane word, and now is becoming less offensive. Retard is near the beginnings of becoming profane. It was used regularly to describe mental illness and now has been replaced with other vocabulary, more often used in a more offensive manner against someone. I'm not an expert, just regurgitating information. In a bikini at the beach. Let me stop you right there. If you're wearing a bikini in a fashion show, at a strip club, etc., then by all means sexualize them. But if I'm just existing in a swimsuit at a beach minding my own goddamn business, then you need to keep your eyes and your gross comments to yourself. The sexualization of breasts outside situations that are sexual or have sexual undertones is extremely damaging. I shouldn't have had to wear a t-shirt at the beach from the age of 12 because people like you felt the need to sexualize my large chest. You might be thinking, but you were a child, surely nobody sexualized you? Wrong. Men would comment how sexy I was, and refuse to believe me when I said I was 12 and that they were being perverts. People in bikinis just existing may turn you on, but that's a you problem. You have no right to make people feel uncomfortable in swimwear because you feel the need to sexualize them. Video games. Hear me out. Every company I've worked for in the UK blocks access to video game websites, whether it's video games themselves, a gaming news site, or just a website that has them as an offshoot subject. No, That's blocked. Always confused me why this would be. Edit because people are having trouble grasping that I mean anything game related. I don't want to play games at work. I would have thought I'd be able to read about them in my downtime.